Hello and welcome to another episode of Top 5. You are watching Amateur Board Gamer, and in today's episode of Top 5, we will continue the journey from year 2010. Okay, from this decade, this is the decade where digital devices have already well established themselves into households. And there was then a focus where people start to want to move away from digital devices, which also started a renaissance to tabletop gaming as people were starting to get addicted to digital devices. So in Asia, in this timing, this was also the period of time where awareness to tabletop gaming was also brought because more and more countries in Asia become more affluent and they start ditching their third world status to move towards first world. And of course, with that, cultural changes, more people actually have opportunities to start designing games for tabletop. So in 2010, we will actually be covering the first half of 2010 first because there are too many games that are, I would think, good in this decade. So we will actually only be looking at 2010 to 2014 and we'll give you our top 5 in that period. Okay, in 2010 alone, based on BGG's top 100 games, there are actually 85 titles that belong in that decade. So that shows you how powerful that decade actually is. And together with me, I have 3 guests. So the first of the 3 guests is my recurring guest. You see him in every episode of Top 5 so far, and that is Geoffrey.
Hi.
Yeah, and his background, he's showing one of his newest or soon-to-come Kickstarter game. So do watch out for that when it's out on Kickstarter or when it's out in the market. Are you doing Kickstarter for that?
Still considering. Yeah. Initially it's supposed to be the Kickstarter is supposed to be on June, but because of COVID, I actually kind of postponed it to later date, which is unconfirmed. Yeah.
I see. Okay, but no worries. When it's out, definitely you will hear it first from Amateur Board Gamer.
Yeah, sure.
We'll be reporting as soon as it's out there. Okay, and next we have Matthew, who has been appearing in the whole decade top 5 era. So Matthew is an 8-time Game Jam participant, and of course, his background is his game, Better Mincy Majors.
Yep.
Yeah, so you're not gonna say anything more?
No, just stay tuned because right now I'm just working with the manufacturers. Yeah.
So the game is coming soon. Yeah.
Coming soon to a store near you.
Soon to a store near you, coming soon to a YouTube channel near you.
Oh, true.
Yeah, if you haven't subscribed to Amateur Board Gamer, this is the time. You have the button at the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Do click it, subscribe to us, turn on the notification bell so you can get more board gaming videos that comes to you from Singapore. And last but not least, we have the founder of Start Stunting Studio and also an ex-YouTuber, so some of you may find him a bit familiar, just a little bit. He hasn't appeared in YouTube for a while now, I guess.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a good while.
Yeah, and we have Elliot.
Yeah. Hey, well, you cut my hand. My Zoom background has interfering with it. But hi, yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me over to talk about board games. Probably my second love after my wife. Yes.
Second love.
Yeah, that's good actually.
Have to cover bases. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it as well.
It's my third love. Board game is my third love after my wife and myself.
Yeah, see, that's important. That's important to preface before everything else.
It's borderline dangerous lah. If you
it is.
Then they will deem it as an obsession.
Oh yeah. Sometimes my wife thinks I spend more on board games than I do on her, which is not true, by the way. But
spend more on board games. I don't know, man. I just received 16 games from Amazon, so maybe in the month of September. But I'm sure in September I'll spend more on my wife because it's her birthday month, so it's coming.
That's so sweet.
We know it's coming.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, anyway, let's not keep the audience waiting. So let's move on straight to 2010. Okay, in 2010, I have the sole entry, and my entry for 2010 is 7 Wonders. So 7 Wonders is a card drafting game where you actually play as one of the 7 Wonders. That was the original game before all the various expansions came out and actually introduced so many different wonders. Now I think you have 16 or 18 to choose from. I lost count because they just come out with so many expansions for it. And in 7 Wonders, the basic gameplay is that you start off having 3 ages, I think they call it ages, and you actually be drafting cards based on each age, and there will be different kind of ways that you can actually gain points. You can use the scientific way to gain points. You have the military track. You actually have the, I think they call it civilization, where you actually build theaters and entertainment and stuff. And of course, you will need your basic marketplaces and your material cards. So those elements of it make the whole drafting very fun, because you will need to have certain material to build the next item. And of course, you will also be considering at that point when you actually receive your hand, perhaps it's a lousy hand and you actually have nothing you want to play, then you can actually use the cards to actually build your so-called your wonder, because there's actually 3 or 2 phases of the wonder for you to build. So to me, as a game, it is one of my first few card drafting games, and I feel that, I mean, as a game, some people may find that it's getting a bit old. I feel that it's still very solid. However, I don't really like the new edition that just came out this year. I feel that the cards have been over shiny. They actually put in all sorts of foils on the card nowadays, so it's like, I still prefer the original, the OG one. So that is my 2010 pick, 7 Wonders. So moving on from 2010, we'll go into 2011. So in 2011, we have 2 entries, and the first of which is from Matthew.
Yeah, so my 2011 entry, right, the name of the game is actually called Scout. Now, I've talked about this in the top 5 under 30 minutes game. Again, it's my kind of game, very mind-gamey. For those of you who are yet to watch it, yeah, you should go and watch it. But nonetheless, I will just give a very brief summary. So in Skulls, basically you have 3 flowers and 1 skull, as every player has that, like, as in the form of cards. And what they actually do at the start is they start placing down whichever card they like, one at a time. Now, when somebody is confident enough, he will actually make a bid to say how many cards can he reveal, which are flowers. And of course, whoever is the highest bidder will first have to open up his own deck of cards in which he placed down first. Right? And then if he has yet to reveal any flowers, no, if he has yet to reveal any skulls, so let's say for example he opened up 2 flowers and he bidded for 3 flowers, he then needs to choose which other player to open up another card. But at any point in time, he gets a skull, he will lose 1 of his cards. However, if he's able to win the auction, he wins a point, and whoever either wins 2 points or whoever's left in the game wins. So what I like about the game is, again, there's a lot of mind games going on. Do you think that person plays the skull at the top? Is the guy playing it at the bottom, or he actually has all flowers, you know? And you're just trying to, it's just 2 points only. So the game is very short, very mind gamey, very intense, my kind of game. 2011 Skull.
Alright, so I have the other entry in 2011, and I think the game that I have picked is way far away from Matthew's pick, because in this game, the first time when I played, the setup itself and the learning of the rules actually took longer than the actual gameplay itself. So the game that I picked for 2011 is Castles of Burgundy. So in Castles of Burgundy, it's set in the Burgundy region of France, and every player actually takes on the role of an aristocrat. So what you are trying to do is you are controlling a little town, so to speak, where you are actually aiming to build settlements and powerful castles, and the objective of it is to get the most points. So the game is about players taking settlement tiles from the game board, placing them in their little town represented by the player board, and each tile has a various function that actually takes a certain effect when the tile is being placed. For me, this game was one of the few games where it actually showed me how a die roll is not just what number it is, where you actually try to roll for 6 all the time, because it's a bit different from just trying to roll the biggest roll or trying to get a specific roll, because you could actually roll anything, but when you actually manage to actually put the die into your so-called your town, it actually changes how you actually look at things, because of the way the place or the town tile that you are given. There are actually various ways of playing it, so that you see you are trying to actually match certain things, because you get points for that as well. So there are many ways that you can actually reach the end point. there's no so-called one strategy or dominant strategy, at least not that I found. And there are multiple ways that you can actually replay this, and the replayability of this game is extremely good. The only problem is the setup when you actually have all the counts messed up. Takes a long while. That's my only complaint of the game. And that is one of the reasons why for games like that, right, sometimes I would rather choose to actually play the online version of a tabletop game, because it actually reduces the setup time for me. Yeah. So my entry for 2011, Castle of Burgundy. And of course, with that, we are moving away from 2011 and straight into 2012. So for 2012, let's have Elliot share his triple entry in 2012.
Yeah, I have quite a number of things in 2012 that I really enjoyed. I think it was one of the years which I started spending. I got my first job back then, so I started spending a lot more money actually getting games. The first one on my list is actually Tokaido. Right, Tokaido is this beautiful, very scenic game where you get to travel the famed Tokaido Road, and the whole idea is to just have the richest experience amongst all the players in the game. If it's not a very, I would say like the strategy in this game isn't extremely high, but certainly it's a very scenic and beautiful experience playing with your friends. Like every time we sit down to enjoy it, it's all about eating food. I mean, fictionally eating food, trying to build these panoramas. So as you're exploring the board of Tokaido, it gives us a sense of like the game of life, except, you're not building an entire life's journey. This is just simply from one end to the board to the other. Now, the cool thing about this is really, I think, the art. And to me, a lot of board games trying to strike like a very fine balance between these two things. Either sometimes, the game is very strategic, mathematically very intense, but then, the theme might not appeal to people like me. Tokaido kind of sits right between there, where as a person who loves Japanese culture and travel alone, this game had a good art style that reflected its themes very clearly. And I think if you're just wanting, introduce a game to your friends, the kind that, let's say for like me and my group of friends, I don't really have that hardcore play group. So this is the kind of thing you could sit down on a Sunday afternoon. I can brew a pot of tea, we sit down together, and then explore the world. It's actually rather lightweight, and the games don't last super long. I think on average for us, it's anywhere between like 45 minutes to an hour, and good for small groups of 2 to 5. So that is my first entry for 2012, Tokaido.
Actually, funny story, Tokaido is the first board game that I have in my former board game collection, because it was actually gifted to me by my wife as a Christmas gift years back.
So sweet.
So
sweet.
It has a very special position in my heart, but I didn't pick it in this list of top 5 because
to be fair, there's a lot of things to pick, to be fair.
It's a wonderful game, especially now during this whole COVID situation where you can't travel. It makes you feel like you are traveling, because you are literally traveling across the actual Tokaido route, where it's actually is in existence in the map. When I went to Japan last year, we literally, I didn't realize it was an actual location. When I was just playing with Google Maps, I was telling my wife, hey, Tokaido actually exists. So I was like, ooh.
Yeah, I think this was in Kyoto, if I'm not mistaken. Because this is a long time ago. So, but I traveled before to the Tokaido route before I actually played this game. And then I think my mom was like, hey, I think we were here before. And I said, oh, really? Can't remember that. But yeah, it's a really cool game just because when you build the panoramas together, it's for points. But the more you see, the more points you get. And it just feels good while not being boring to watch the board state. Yeah.
Actually, I got one fun fact about Tokaido. Its publisher, Funforge, actually distributed the Tokaido app for free during the COVID lockdown. Yeah, so at a certain period of time, which I can't remember which week of the.
I know when.
Yeah.
It was the first week of March, because subsequently after I downloaded the app, I was hospitalized. So I remember that day.
Yeah, so actually they did it twice. So one is March and one is around June. Yeah, so they actually distributed the game for free. Yeah, so so actually it was for free it's a free app. Yeah, during the COVID period of time, yeah, so in a way, I do appreciate FunPod's intent to us get through this COVID.
Yeah, thank you for keeping us entertained, FunForge. If you want to sponsor some games for us, we'll have to look at them. Anyway, they had a Kickstarter for Namiji that came out last year. It was like continuation in the same theme, and when I saw it, without thinking, I backed it.
Same. It's beautiful.
I realized it was like, I think, 85 euros. But then again, yeah, it's
you're paying for some solid art. You're paying for some really solid art.
Because so far, I think they've shown us some sheets and all, and those the art of it is really cool. Okay, so let's move on to the second of Elliot's pick for 2012.
Okay, so my second pick this time is a casual card game, but I always see it as more as like a board game. This one is called Smash Up. I know you guys know by AEG. So Smash Up by AEG, very casual game, but good enough to teach people things like action sequences. Actually, I love playing it with my nieces and nephews. The theme of it supposedly is, if you read the lore, it's supposed to be, this is a bunch of movie sets and you're supposed to have the best Smash Up film, right? The gameplay doesn't reflect that at all, but like, just the idea of taking two different genres and piecing them together to make your main deck is, I think, part of the initial fun of it. So how the game works is that there are different movie set tiles on the board, and you and your combined Smash Up deck are supposed to score points at these locations. Total, I think it's supposed to get 14 or 16 points. I can't remember the exact number. But you and your friends are competing to place power cards at locations, playing one action or one event a turn. So just two things. Very simple gameplay loop. Nothing too complicated. And the cards, as you just read them as they are. There's nothing special with the interactions. As they developed like more rule sets, and there were a lot of expansions down the line, I think things were a bit complicated. But just the core set alone was just magical and whimsical. You had like zombies, pirates, ninjas, aliens, and the whole idea is just pick two of these things, shuffle the cards together, and just start playing on the field. Likewise, I'm not a big fan of a lot of AEG games, but Smash Up for one is something which I found a lot of, I guess, good response from a lot of casual gamers out there. When they come down to like my studio, for example, they're like, hey, I have a bit of time. Is there something that's fun and quirky that we can just try? And I usually take out the box of Smash Up, because it doesn't take a lot for someone to just recognize like, hey, okay, I like zombies, I like ninjas. What would it be like when I put them together? And it's pretty intuitive how the gameplay works, because you're supposed to find combos, right, between these two factions. Things that you might not have thought about before. The moment you've tried it for the first time, you realize, okay, wow, I really like the draw mechanic from the wizards, for example. How if I place that with something more sneaky like ninjas and pirates? Not all combinations are very optimal, but I guess that's the whole point of the game. You just want to see your two favorite things work together to try and like beat the system. So yeah, this one can get very competitive. That one I've learned the hard way. But it's good enough, I think, as something which is entry level, teaches people about sequencing, teaches people about just very basic number counting. Great for all ages, if you ask me. Well, I guess you need a certain cerebral level. Like 8 and above works very well for my experience. So that is my second entry. Smash Up also in 2012. Yeah.
Smash Up. Pretty fun game.
Yeah, it's a very easy game to play, honestly. That's why you'll notice that the rest of the stuff on my list generally very simple rule sets, but good enough for people who I would say are just looking for a good night out. Because not a lot of gamers, like, we're very hardcore, but I guess not a lot of people like me have that sort of like close circle of friends who are just hanging out at your place and then just want to like throw around, have some fun, laugh a bit here and there.
Actually, for one tip for this game, right, which I always apply, is not to allow players to pick their races. Yeah, so basically the two races are distributed randomly, so this will avoid any experienced players picking the best combo. Yeah, right. So very often I do a random
Normally I'll just
Okay, so
normally I just pick one card from each deck, then we shuffle, and then we just deal out. Then that's your deck. Like you take the 2 cards and you choose the faction accordingly. So it's like randomized. Otherwise, if you get experienced players to choose 2 decks, you know
that's
you're
true.
but unless you really want a challenge that you say, okay, pick your best 2, and then I'll pick any 2. I give you the first pick. So it could be a challenge way of playing the game, but then I do agree with Geoffrey. If you're just playing generally, I think randomizing the deck does give each player some good fun, because then you are playing something that you may not have been used to, not something that you expect.
That's true, and there are some very broken combos in the game, so it's always nice to be able to level the playing
First
field.
time I did something, I was asking my friend, are you sure I can do this? Then I read the rules. Hey, I can do this, leh.
Yeah.
Then we just kept going. I was like, I think at that point of time he felt defeated. Like, okay lah. Yeah. So okay, that's the second entry. Let's move on to your third entry then.
Okay, so my third and final entry from 2012 is a game that I actually got to try out all the way at Comic-Con in the year before it was published, so that was 2011. This is Legendary, a Marvel deck building game. This one published in 2012. It's very simple. It's by Upper Deck Entertainment, and the whole idea is that you and your friends are recruiting Marvel heroes to fight against a bad guy who has a certain scheme that they're trying to accomplish. What's interesting about this is that unlike most cooperative games that are Marvel themed, tend to be like either pre-built or you already you have a certain set of skills and you're rolling dice. This one is a pure draft game, and you have to work with your friends to draft out the best team and most synergistic. I like game engine builders for that exact reason, because if you build it wrongly, you'll feel the effects very fast. But when you build it right, it feels super, super good for you. Legendary is a pretty heavy game in the sense that there are quite a number of rules that you have to pay attention to, but the setup isn't very long. In fact, the good thing about this is that it's so modular in the way it's built that you can try many different variations of the same game. You just pick 5 different heroes from the box, shuffle them together in the deck. You choose which villains you want to fight, shuffle them as well, and then you're given just some basic currency and some attack power at the start in your deck. The whole idea is buy the guys you want, try to create synergy, and then when you don't want those things, you try to KO them to thin your deck to its optimal state. For people who like Marvel, just Marvel comics in general, I would say you will see a lot of cool things in this board game because it's not following the MCU. Despite the fact that later on they did have some Marvel Cinematic Universe expansions join the fray. But this is as old school as it gets. In fact, it has certain spin-offs inside for alternate Hulks. You're gonna see Old Man Logan inside the game, and even the bad guys. We're taking not just the classic comic book villains, but some of the more iconic comic book villains as well. This one is great if you and your friends don't want to be competitive with each other. But more so that you're trying to teach each other how to get really, really good at this game. There is a way to kind of play it a campaign style. So this week we'll fight this villain, next week we'll have another one. There's no legacy component, but certainly there's a storyline that you can kind of follow and trail. You really feel like a hero because you get to save bystanders. You get to do epic combo chains, and there's synergy amongst the X-Men, amongst the Avengers, so on and so forth. This one, I got to try it out. Like I was saying, I got to try this game out way before it was released at Comic-Con. It was ready to be launched, but they were doing some sort of test runs there. And I didn't know that many years later, when I finally bought the game, I think I bought it in 2014, I was like, hey, I actually recognize this from giving feedback to one of the developers at Comic-Con. So that's why it's very close to my heart. And Legendary, a Marvel deck building game, certainly something worth trying if you are really into the genre.
Right. Actually, I'm quite surprised that the game has a solo mode, because usually deck builders you don't actually get to play it solo. So I'm quite surprised it has a solo.
Yeah, it's solo and super hardcore modes as well. So it's it tunes the difficulty level to exactly what you want to play. If you're playing casual with friends, very easy. If you're playing a bunch of veterans, you can go extremely hard on it, and games with that kind of modularity don't always work, But in this case, you know, because it's cooperative, you actually feel rather good about it.
Alright. Sounds like a good deck builder. I love a deck builder. I haven't played Legendary myself, so maybe one day I can try it. And
Always ready to lend you. Always ready to lend you my copy.
Right, so I'm gonna be able to borrow a copy to play it. Or if the publisher is willing to sponsor us a copy, we'll be happy to take it off your hands as well. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to two more 2012 pick, and both are actually from Matthew.
Yeah. Alright, so the first of my 2012 entries, the first is actually called Cool. Again, I've talked about it under top 5, under 30 minutes. For those who have not watched the video, in summary, how the game works is like this. Every player has 2 characters, and there are like 5 different types of characters you can choose from, right? And based on what you're given, you basically can perform any action based on any of the roles. Now, because this is a bluffing game, you can lie about what you can do based on what characters you have, right? But if someone catches you, you lose your characters, right? But however, if somebody else catches you wrongly and you are correct, that person actually loses his or her character. And throughout the whole entire time, you're just trying to eliminate each other's characters until you are the last player with characters left in the game. Again, based off this very simple summary, very mind gamey, you're just trying to bluff people, you're just trying to make people catch you wrongly, you know, so that, you know, eventually you win the game. And it plays from anywhere between 2 to 6. So, first entry, cool, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Second entry here, mate.
Pun intended.
Yeah, let me guess your second entry. Is your second entry love letter?
Yes, it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So again, top 5 under 30 minutes. Love letter. Same, pretty much similar concepts to Cool, where every round you will have 1 character card. Sorry, every player has 1 character card, and during your turn, you just draw a card. You will decide what card to discard and perform the action. There are 8 different types of characters, and they range from number 1 to number 8. So number 1s are usually the easiest to actually kill people off, but the number 8s are like the most precious. They can't really do much, but at the end of the game, if everybody is still alive, you're pretty much going to be the winner. So it's down to how do you actually try to knock people out, versus towards the end game, how do you try to keep the high level characters for yourself, right? So again, I talked about it before. If you're not, can just watch top 5 under 30 minutes.
Yeah,
and
somewhere.
Yeah,
check it
second
out.
entry for 2012, Love Letter.
Love Letter is a great game, man. I've seen so many reskins of it because it's a very small deck, right, of cards. So a lot of people, they will take a theme or like a what's that called, an IP that they really like, and then try to reskin it over so that people can play it. And I think it's just a wonderful classic game. Played a lot of it actually. Yeah.
The most ridiculous reskin of it is Batman. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a Batman reskin. Exactly.
It started off as medieval princess, and then Batman comes with a like. But anyway, yeah. I mean,
actually, if I'm not wrong, this is our first Asian game, right, in this list. Yeah, in fact, Love Letter is a Japanese game.
Is it?
Designed by a
Oh
Japanese
yeah, it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's designed by
Original.
Seiji Kanai.
Yes.
So yeah.
So the original Love Letter actually looks like vector graphics. Yeah, but I think the much more mainstream one is the one where this painting of the princess as the
Correct.
At the main cover. Yeah. So
Yeah. I think that's the one that everyone like sort of iconically remembers, and then they forget about the original.
Yeah, but I mean that just shows, as I mentioned earlier at the start, where Asians are starting to actually design games, and they are designing games where people are starting to take notice of. So the reskins are an obvious way to show that a game has made it, such that you can actually have IPs coming in and want to actually put the IP together with your game. So yeah, I think it's one of the good start for Asian games, and definitely this is the second entry in the whole era of from 90s to now, second entry of Asian games. Let's then move on to 2013. we have 2 entries, and the first will be from Geoffrey.
Alright. Okay, so before I start, right, this is my first entry for my top 5, and to be honest, right, all my 5 entries are a lot more heavier strategic games. Okay, so I'm going to keep it brief. I'm not going to explain much of the rules. Okay, so my 2013 pick is one of my favorite trading game. It's called Concordia. Yeah. So what's Concordia about? So players will get to, let's say, move your colonies to various cities. Yeah. So that they can produce various resources. Okay. So what's so interesting about this game, right, is they have card drafting elements. So every turn, right, each player will pick the action they want to play based on the cards they've drawn. And players can also invest on other cards so that when it's reshuffled and they could pick the better card. Yeah, so there are some card drafting elements that you can strategize on. So in which, right, that it requires advanced planning. Yeah, and another thing I like about this game, right, is there are many ways to earn victory points. Yeah, so it all depends on. Before I continue, and each victory conditions are stated on the action card itself. Yeah, so in a way, you can also plan in advance how are you going to score points, as well as you tend to be able to notice your opponent's play style of that game. So in a way that you can somewhat plan that, if this player is trying to earn using the same method to earn points, should I go something else, or should I go and make it try to earn even more points than the other player? Yeah. So there is a lot of strategy factor, So this is one of my favorite games of all time, especially to me it's a very good trading game. Yeah. So that's my 2013 pick, Concordia. Yeah, and before I end, there are many expansions for this game, which I would also recommend you guys to take a few. But however, start from the base game first. Yeah, once you get the gist of the base game, then you can explore other expansions. Yeah.
Because it's more strategic, generally, what's the game runtime for this?
Game runtime. Okay, I played this, let's say, around 2 hours.
2 hours? Oh, okay, that's pretty good.
Around 2 hours, yeah. I mean, for experienced players, maybe in between 1 to 2 is normal, but for new players, especially if you're trying to teach the game, right? Yeah, you take 2 hours onwards. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Might check it out.
Heavy game, man. It's a heavy game.
It sounds like a very heavy game, which I've been actually trying to find like a very good heavy game to invest myself into. And I tell you, I play a lot of casual games with my friends, right? But I think finally, once you indoctrinate people into the whole system, they're always looking for that next challenge. And I think it's hard to find a good heavier game to.
I understand. Yeah. But I do recommend you to learn the rules before asking your friends to go over.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Because of the various ways of earning points, right? Yeah. So each method of earning points actually has a lot of gameplay mechanics and rules. Yeah. So so in a way, you might need to somewhat play test for a while in order to understand the game better. Yeah. Because these games were quite a challenge to teach. Yeah.
Right. Don't worry, I think even with casual games, I still have to teach all my friends one. Like, no choice. So.
Yeah, sure.
A cool, very cool recommendation. Never heard of this one, so.
I mean, if you are new to watching this series, you'll realize that for the at least the 3 of us who have been appearing in all the various eras, you can tell the kind of games we play varies. Matthew go for a quicker, short, mind effing kind of game. That's his style. Geoffrey tends to go for the heavier Euros, and for me, I'm anywhere in between. I'm just picking. I feel they are fun, and I talk about them. So, without further ado, let's move on to Matthew's pick for 2013.
Alright, my 2013 pick, alright, is the name of the game is actually called 2 Rooms and a Boom. Right. So in the game,
cool.
Basically each player can fall under one of 2 teams. So there's the red team and the red team, the leader is actually called the bomber, right? And the blue team, the leader of the blue team is actually called the president, right? So either player can be a blue team, a red team, a bomber, and the president, or a president, right? And the objective of the red team is to actually help the bomber be in the same room as the president, right? As for the blue team, the president doesn't want to get bombed, so they are supposed to help the president not be in the same room as the bomber. Now, this is not only just a game of cards, but you also require 2 rooms. That's why it's called 2 rooms and a pool, right? So at the start of the game, everybody is all given cards, and everybody is split into 2 separate rooms as evenly as possible. So in the game, you will have a certain amount of time duration to actually discuss with people, right? Inside the room, there can be a leader who actually, dictates who to actually transfer over to the other rooms, right? So after, it can go for anywhere between 3 to 5 rounds. It depends on how you like it, whether it's short, long, right? Then also based on the number of rooms, you also decide how many people you actually transfer over, and it's also dependent on the number of players. So basically, after anywhere between 3 to 5 rounds of transferring people around, the game ends. We see where's the bomber and where's the president, and if they're in the same room, the red team wins. If they are in different rooms, then the blue team wins. Right? Again, a lot of mind games, a lot of, whispering around, saying, hey, what should we do? Should we do this? Should we do that? A lot of strategy, and there can be a lot of bluffing elements in the game. Personally, one of my top few party games as well. So 2013, Dooms and the Boom.
I'd like to add on something for this game. My recommended number of players is somewhere in between 10 to 15 players. Anything less than 10 is, to be honest, is not fun. Anything more than 15 is not fun for a group of people. Yeah.
But in case you guys were wondering, this game plays 6 to 30. It's like, woof, what a player count range. How many games you see out there can play 6 to 30?
Yeah.
Ends at 5 or 6. We talk about tabletop gaming. But this one is interesting in a sense. It's not your traditional tabletop game.
Yeah.
Because you are playing, I don't know, you can probably call it a room game. You're moving around.
Yeah, correct. So actually,
No, sorry, continue.
yeah. So actually, another thing is also that so instead of just being a blue team, right? The game itself, they also have expansions where you could play multiple kinds of roles and personalities. So it's not just a random blue team player who has like no special abilities or anything of that sort. Yeah, so you can go and check it out. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you can try this game, Elliot. Yeah. So like I said, I try to play within 10 to 15, and I do recommend this game not because of gameplay but because of the experience.
Yeah. I think once we can gather with more than 5 people in Singapore, I definitely will try this game out. Yeah.
and you definitely need 2 separate rooms, or at least an indoor and outdoor, so that people in 2 different teams will not hear each other. Yeah.
This is cool. My kind of game. Yeah.
Alright. So before we move on to 2014, you'll realize that we are now in the last year of that 5-year series, and we only have introduced 10 games so far. This shows how powerful the year 2014 is. But before we move on to 2014, I just want to give a quick shout out to a game that I consciously chose not to pick because I've talked about this game too many times. Yeah, it would have been a 2013 pick, and the game is Hanami Koji. But I have talked about this game multiple times, so you can actually check out the link here on my on the various top 5 videos that I actually talked about Hanami Koji to check it out, because it's a solid pick for 2-player game. But I have gone for a different 2-player game in this top 5 listing. So yeah, I will share mine later on in 2014. So on to 2014. So 2014 is a year that every one of us has a pick. More notably, Geoffrey has 4 picks in 2014. So, but before we get Geoffrey to share, let's get Elliot to talk about his 2 2014 picks. I suspect there's going to be crossover. I think so. Well,
maybe because like Matthew likes like those mind effing games, right? Well, one of my top picks, both of them actually have that moment of like deception. And not to be a pun, but the first game I chose was actually Deception. The Deception Murder in Hong Kong. This is like a 2014 piece that was published. I actually really enjoyed this a lot. When I was a kid, I used to play Cluedo, and if you guys have played Clue as well, it kind of works rather similarly. But this kind of foreshadows a game in the years much later on, like Mysterium and stuff. So the whole idea is that everyone has like a role, right? There's a murder, someone's a killer, and each of you are given a role. The interesting thing here is that someone here is a forensic scientist, so you're not really like playing the game, so to speak. You're arbitrating, and you can express clues to who the murderer is, or using these special scene tiles. Yeah, and this comes into a game of interpretation between the investigators and the murderers. The idea of the murderer is that you have to, and your accomplice, you have to sort of like deflect away and try to like throw the investigators off the scent, while investigators, you are really trying to understand what the forensic scientist is saying. I think the whole idea of misdirection, and as a game that doesn't have that many number of rules, but you have a lot of laughs for sure for a game that's really dark, just because when you're doing any sort of interpretive game, you will end up in kind of like Dixit and stuff, like you will end up in some like hilarious situations. Now, one of the drawbacks of this, however, is that because the forensic scientist is so important, if you have someone who's inexperienced or someone who just isn't very good with communication, it can make the game rather dragged out and sometimes a bit even mundane and got some feels bad moments. But if if everyone around you have good vibes, you know that this is a team of like art students, for example, myself included, like they tend to really enjoy these kind of games, and they always hope like, okay, I hope the forensic scientist the next round. That's where the whole idea of can I tell a good story comes into play. So my pick, my first pick for 2014 is Deception: Murder in Hong Kong.
I mean, sometimes we can't blame the forensic scientists, where the kind of clue cards that they're given to place the bullet on is crap. They can't do much, man. Like, for example, some of the clues have nothing to do with time of the day, but they are insistent to put something because it's just out there, and it hasn't reached the second turn for them to replace it. So like, why does time have to do it with anything? But then there was one round where I played, someone put evening, and the murder, I think one of the murder weapon or the clue is actually mahjong tiles, and we got it.
Wow, okay. Wow. That's some super far-fetched stuff, man.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, so you kind of had the stereotyping of people play mahjong in the evening. I don't know, man. I mean, it's just, we thought about it, and that's
in the same synced up really, see. That's the thing. These kind of games really require affinity.
If you have that kind of sync with your forensic scientists, and you know them well enough, and the way they actually would explore and they think, you actually have some hidden advantage, to be honest.
Yeah. This sort of like game, I mean, this genre in particular, I think wasn't very strong in 2010 to 2014. I would say that I really enjoyed this genre, but we saw a lot more of it in the later half of the decade. So if I had a chance, maybe like 2015 and onwards, right, there's so many good titles that have this whole I need to read your mind and try to understand what's going through your head to get to the win.
Actually, I agree that this Deception Murder in Hong Kong is a good game, but however, it's not in my top 5. Is because of the forensic scientists. To be honest, the role of forensic scientist is not for everyone. So for me, and I actually hosted this game quite a number of times. So for me, right, when I teach this game, I actually teach new players how to act as a forensic scientist. So one of the game-breaking mistake for forensic scientists, right, is keep on staring at the murderer's palm. Because if they are trying to think that what the next clue, right, and they forget the murderer's palm, right, they will tend to look at it. And the number of times they keep on the forensic scientists keep on staring at the murderer's palm to the point whereby it's so obvious, So for me, right, when I teach new players, I start as a forensic scientist and tell everyone that, okay, because I've forgotten the tile and I have to look at everybody's tile. So
I'll make the forensic scientist stare at everyone's tile for 5 seconds if they want to refresh what the...
Yes.
It will be super not fun for the rest of people who are actually into trying to guess the right answer. But anyway, let's move on to your second pick.
Okay, so my second game is also a bit of like deception. In fact, the whole game about is about deception. This one is called Sheriff of Nottingham. I really enjoy this game. It's so cute. Firstly, it has this whole medieval Robin Hood type theme to it. The whole idea is that you and your friends are gonna be a bunch of like like you could be a baker or like a apple grower or some stuff. You basically want to go to the market, but you're smuggling goods into the city. Now, the only thing that's standing in your way is a sheriff. The sheriff is going to choose whether to inspect your goods or not. So everyone's given these little pouches, and you're supposed to take your cards, shove them inside, up to 4 cards and go inside, and you will tell the sheriff, okay, here is what is inside. Maybe you might say there are 4 apples. The sheriff might have to make a decision. Do I check this person's bag or do I not? Or let him pass? If you check the bag and it's all 4 apples, the sheriff must pay you some money for troubling you. But if the sheriff has caught you smuggling in some contraband, which is worth way more points, but is illegal in the city, then you're gonna have to pay the sheriff even more money. The sheriff role is kind of like rotated between all the players at the table, so everyone has a chance to inspect others, and also during when they're not sheriff, they get to smuggle in their goods. End of the day, it's a point system. The one with the most points wins, and also you get additional points for having the most apples, having the most cheese, having the most chicken, and I think there's one more, but I can't remember all the different item types. What fun it is though is like the whole idea that it's asymmetrical at one point in time in the game, right? You're all getting a chance to kind of bluff each other out, and also see whether or not you're going to be the person who's going to get bluffed at most of the time. Very different to what I talked about in Hong Kong, in Murder in Hong Kong just now, like Deception, because that one, it really hinges on one person being really good at their role, the forensic scientist. Well, in this case, even if someone sucks at being the sheriff, it's fine. Like, you'll just move it around the table 2 rounds, and once that's over, maybe you're not good at checking people, but you're very good at lying to them about smuggling things across the border. Totally my kind of game, because you have to review the stuff that you've brought into the city, into the market, and once you show like 4 contraband cards, right, it's like, wow, you feel like such a good little devil inside. It's just wonderful. So they did make an expansion later on, so it accommodates more players, but I think the base set only has up to 5. So not a huge party game at the beginning, but certainly one that can entertain you guys for a good 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah, so anyway, just a fun fact, Sheriff of Nottingham, the expansion has become so essential that in the 2nd edition that they launched, I think earlier this year, they actually have put the Merryman expansion as part of the 2nd edition. So now if you buy Sheriff of Nottingham in the new design, which I totally detest, unlike the old.
Yeah.
So I don't really like the artwork of the 2nd edition, but then you have Merryman included. But if you are like me and you choose to buy Sheriff of Nottingham 1st edition and Merryman separately, and you're trying to find out how to store them together, I have a video for you up here where we actually teach you how to store expansions into the main box. Because to be honest, when you buy expansions, you want to play with the main game. And if you store them separately, you don't play it together because you kind of forgot that you have the expansion sometimes. So I think it's essential you store them together, and it's expensive to get. Like your inserts from places like Broken Token, or even for the phone calls, it's just expensive to get it. So actually, I have some videos that teach you how to actually store them in very, very cheap cost, and it looks beautiful and it stores everything in. So yeah, do check it out if you have the first ed game and you haven't stored it together. Check it out.
I actually used that video to help myself store my expansion, so thanks, man.
Alright, thank you. So next we'll move on to the quotable entry from Geoffrey. I think it's the first time any of us have 4 entries in 1 year from all the eras that we have spoken thus far. So Geoffrey, on to you for 4 times.
Alright, okay, so because it's 4 in a row, right? Okay, I'm going to start with, the last one will be my most favorite. Alright, okay, so this first entry of 2014 is a game called Viceroy. Yeah, so this game is about building a pyramid with squarish character cards. Alright, so in each round, each player will have to try to bid to so-called purchase these character cards with a colored gem. Okay, so there are 4 colors. Okay, each player will choose a color, put on your hand. Okay, then we'll review it together. Okay, if your color is the only one among all the players, you will earn the card that you intend to purchase. If it's the same, okay, you have to discard the coin and auction again. Alright, of course, you can give up the option to earn more gems. Okay, so that's the first phase of the game. Second phase is you choose your character cards or some other special ability cards to build a pyramid. Alright, so along the way, the game ends, okay, when you earn points according to how you build your pyramid, and whoever got the most points from how you score within the pyramid, okay, whoever got the most points wins the game. Yeah. So it is also one of the game where I find it interesting. I find the auction mechanics interesting. Yeah, because it will kind of like forces you to have some bluffing elements. Okay, either bluffing or negotiation elements. Okay, and there are also multiple ways to earn points. Yeah, so you can earn points by set collection, you can earn points by placing the right character cards at a certain level, etc. Yeah. So among my list of games, this is one of the shorter game. Okay, although minimum could take around 45 minutes. Yeah, but I believe this game is still available online. So before it went out on print, I do recommend people to get a copy of it. Yeah, so it is quite an interesting pyramid building game. Yeah, so that's my first pick of 2014, Visceral. Okay, so my second pick is a game where I'm not very sure how to pronounce it. It's called Lagranja. L-A-G-R-A-N-J-A. Yeah, so Lagranja. Yeah, so it is definitely some other language which
Spanish for the market.
Spanish, yes.
The granja.
Yeah, and I believe the meaning of this word means farm. Yeah, so basically, this game is about you owning a farm and producing goods, selling your goods, etc. Okay, yeah. So one interesting thing about this game, right, is you can play a card, but each card, right, has 4 sides, and you will able to get some benefits according to how you want to place the cards. So let's say if you want to use the left side of the card, it will give you resources every turn. If you pick the right side, you pay money for resources. If you pick the top, means you're going to deliver whatever that's in demand. The bottom, okay, has some special ability. Yeah, so it's one of the games where I find it so interesting, whereby they utilize all 4 corners of the cards, and each corner of the card has some different ability. Yeah, so there is a lot of planning, especially advanced planning on how are you going to play a card and when are you going to play a card. Yeah, so it is something like advanced planning based on sequences. Yeah, and it is also, it is a trading game, which is one of my favorite genres. It's like an economic game. Okay, another factor that is interesting is there are dice rolls, and the dices, right, okay, are placed at different actions. Yeah, so you roll the dice, okay, and then we place them on different actions. You know that, all right, in this round, you will get to pick all these actions. Yeah, so it is a shared luck factor in a way that the dice doesn't affect the player, but it affects everyone. Yeah, so I do recommend everyone to check out this game. Yeah, also try to learn this game before you teach your friends. Yeah, so because of the many various elements to basically earn money. Yeah, so of course the player with the most victory points wins, and that is that's my second pick for 2014, Lagranja.
Right, actually for this game, just to interrupt Geoffrey, I don't have a crossover, but for this game, if you want to try out, because it has a solo mode, so like what you say, you can actually play this solo to learn the mechanics before you teach your friends, and you can actually play this on Board Game Arena, because that is where I actually had a chance to play this game for the first time. And to be honest, sometimes when you play certain games digitally, you forgot how complex it is to set up a game, because the moment you click start, everything is set up nicely for you. So yeah, if you want to try out certain games, I think a place like Board Game Arena or Tabletopia is a good place for you to actually check out certain games before you buy them. because you may or may not like it, but you just want to have a flavor of it. And to be honest, if this was a pick for, if I actually extended this to top 10, I would have included the Grana because it's such a fun game. And even though I only learned the game, I think 3 or 4 months ago, funnily enough, right, during circuit breaker, during COVID, I actually taught the game like 7 times digitally. So because I wanted to teach friends to play it, and it didn't seem as long as it took, but the whole gameplay, I mean, if you have heard of this game, you will know the whole idea of making sure you have enough picks, because that's so important in the game. It's such a strong economic factor. Geoffrey will probably understand what I'm saying, given that he knows the game. Picks are important, and that's when you roll the die, it's from the die roll 1, you get picks. So anyway, sorry for interrupting.
No worries.
Because I just want to make sure he has enough time to rest, because he had to speak 4 times consecutively. So it's not an easy task to talk about 4 games non-stop. So I'm giving him a bit of a half-time break. But I think half-time is over. So Geoffrey, back to you for your third pick.
Alright. Okay, so this third pick for 2014, right, is actually a struggle because I'm choosing between this game and one pick from 2012. Okay, and this to shout out, right, this 2012 is actually Suburbia. I'm not going to explain the rules, but I like Suburbia. Okay, so I'm just thinking either Suburbia or this game. So what's this game I'm picking eventually is called Castles of Mad King Ludwig. Yeah, Castles of Mad King Ludwig. Okay, yeah, so it is a castle building game in which that to be honest, I'm not going to explain the rules because it's quite complex. Okay, but I'm going to explain, right, what's so interesting about this game is every turn, players will get to be a master builder. You will get to pick a number of tiles to build the castle. Okay, so each player will have a chance to pick some of the tiles and build a castle. Okay, but what's so interesting about master builder, right, is the master builder will actually get to pick last. So he will start to arrange these tiles according to different pricing. So let's say if the master builder or the player in turn wants to pick this tile, he might have to plan, should I make it the cheapest or the most expensive? But because I'm the master builder, I pick last, it cannot be too cheap because other players could buy it first. But if I put it too expensive, I might not be able to afford other tiles later in the later round. So there is some strategic factor to think about. Yeah, so this is actually one mechanic or interesting mechanic that makes me pick this game rather than Suburbia. And I'm not saying that Suburbia is an inferior game because I thought that one of you might pick that game. Yeah, it's actually a much more popular game there. Yeah, so
it's a good time actually, Suburbia.
Yeah, so so other than that, right, okay, you will get to earn points based on how you place the tiles in your castle. Yeah, so you might earn points according to, this tile is placed beside a certain type of tile, etc., etc. Yeah, so obviously this game is about having the most points win. Alright, so to me it takes around 1.5 hours to play, around 90 minutes. Yeah, but the gameplay is quite complex, so do read about the rules before you play your friends. Yeah, so it is a very interesting game. I would also highly recommend you guys to pick this game before it is our free Castles of Mad King Ludwig. So that's my third 2014 pick. Alright, so my fourth pick is one of my favorite games of all time, which I've mentioned in other videos. It's called Istanbul. And I would like to repeat that point whereby get the big box version, please. The big box consists of the base game and 2 expansions, and it's a lot more cheaper than buying 3 together. Yeah, so highly recommend the big box version. Yeah, and probably set if you want to edit a video, I just show the big box packaging.
I'm gonna show both, man. I'm gonna show both.
Show both, but that's fine. Yeah, so please get the big box version because it's definitely a lot more cheaper. Yeah, and you can still play the base game. Yeah, you won't get mixed up between which one belongs to expansion or not. Yeah, so so Istanbul is about you and some of your employees. Okay, will move to various tiles, and you will activate some action according to where you land. Alright, your objectives is to earn rubies, okay, and there are many ways to earn rubies. Yeah, so there are some. It's basically some kind of like a trading game. Yeah, and it's a great movement game. Yeah, so so I have mentioned this game quite a number of times. You can watch Amateur Board Gamers other videos to find out more. Okay. Other than that, in fact, I also recommended one of both of the expansions in another video. Yeah, so do try it out, and I'm sure most of you will like it. Yeah, so that's my fourth pick, Istanbul.
Actually, Istanbul is the kind of game, right, where you will call it a board game, but essentially there's no board. You put cards on the table, and it acts like a board. So, yeah, I'm not sure if Istanbul is one of the first few games that actually done it. I'm sure there could be other games that done it, but I think Istanbul is one of the first high-profile games that did it. That actually start establishing the fact that you no longer need a board to play a board game, where you actually can reproduce it using cards, and you can actually, because the fact that you're using cards, you can have variable ways of, maybe Catan did it first, given the variable player board kind of thing, but then using cards you can actually place it in a different manner, and then you have a different board if you want to set it up differently for replayability. So I don't know if maybe Catan is the one that did it first because they are such an old game, but then it's
Yeah, I actually won't call it cards. I actually call it
boards.
Board tiles.
Board tiles.
So it's actually squarish tiles. Yeah. So
Istanbul is a classic, man. Out of all the games that have this modularity to it, I think Istanbul is something which kind of holds its weight even right now. Even a lot of games have come out with similar concepts, but I think Istanbul is truly one of the first of its kind, at least.
Okay, I'm surprised we have no crossover for 2010 to 2014 yet. So we have 4 more games, and if we clear Matthew's only pick in 2014, we may have 20 games to actually recommend to you this time now. So Matthew, what is your 2014 pick?
I feel so scared to mention because there might be 19 only. Okay, my 2014 pick is called Spy 4. No? Alright, so yeah. So in Spy 4, every player gets to take on the role, right? So you're either the spy or not the spy. And if you are not the spy, you will be given a clue. And all the non-spies will have the same clue. It's just that they don't know who all the non-spies are, right? The spy doesn't have any clue, and the spy actually needs to figure out what is the clue that all the non-spies have. The non-spies, what they're supposed to do is find out who's the spy. So how they go about doing all this is by asking questions. So let's say, for example, I start first, right? So I can just ask another player, so what are you doing over there? And you are free to ask any question, and you're free to answer the question in any way you like, right? And so the person who answered the question now gets to ask another person a question. So basically this goes on for a set amount of time, and after time's up, everybody decides who is the spy. And if the spy is guessed correctly, then the spy has a chance to actually win the game by actually guessing where is like the location, if I'm correct. Yeah, locations. So again, because interpretive kind of games, you can ask random kind of questions, you can get random kind of answers, and you're just like trying to figure out who's what. Yeah. So 2014 Spy 4. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite party games actually. Like, it's very for ice breaking and trying to you don't have to learn each other's names, right? You can kind of just direct a question at someone, and it's good enough for big parties. I don't think it's that boring for bigger groups. But even within smaller groups, I think it's not a terrible game to play as well. But the same issue is that if the spy is usually a person who's very bad at asking these kind of questions, you'll have a pretty boring round. But aside from that, can get some pretty hilarious moments out of the room.
I mean, Spy 4, my first encounter with the game actually isn't it in its board game form, because there's an app for it. So
Yeah.
So to me, when you mention Spyfall, to me it's like, isn't that an app game? But I know it's a board game. I know it was adapted from a board game. But I mean, to me, because of the fact that I first encountered it as a app, so it feels more like a digital, and it feels more intuitive that it was digitalized and it becomes a digital game. But I'm sure the original game, I mean, when you play a game digitally and you play a game through a board, there is in fact some differences. So and I mean, at the start we also mentioned 2010 is the period where people start getting addicted to looking at screens, and here we are making more videos to make you look at the screen longer, but that's life now. That's part of our usual life in 2020, and more so given that we can't actually have human interactions because of COVID. So yeah, we're trying to make do with what we have. Okay, so let's move on to my triple pick for 2014, and there is no crossover because I'm going to be sharing the games of my 2014 pick in the order of the lightest game to the heaviest game. And my first of 2014 is actually an Asian game. The designer is Shinpei Sato. It is a game about Kung Fu, and the game is Onitama. So Onitama is a game where you actually, it's a bit like chess, where you have your characters, you have your kind of like your master and your 4 disciples on your side of the board, and obviously the other player has his version of it. And what you do is you actually randomly get 5 cards from a deck, and these are the moves that you can take. So you have 2 cards that is placed on your side, 2 cards that is placed on your opponent's side, and 1 in the free roll. So you can choose one of the 2 moves to make. Yeah, essentially they are all different stances of Kung Fu. If you become like the grasshopper or the tiger, they have different stances. So you move the pieces that way, and the moment you use one of it, you actually exchange with the common tile that you have, the common card that is belonging to no one, and you take that in, and that will form your next move. So it's a game where you can actually plan ahead in time, because you don't really know what the moves are that your opponent will take until it's kind of like closer to his turn, or you're trying to calculate how far are you to winning, because there are a few win conditions. There's 2 different win conditions. One of the win condition is that you have to send your your master over to the other parties, the gate of the other party. I'm not so sure what you call that now. Yeah, but you have to move your masterpiece over there, or you actually kind of trap the person such that they have no move, they have no legal move to make. So there's different ways of winning, and it comes with 2 different expansions, although I haven't played either of it. But to me, the base game itself, it's good enough because it feels a lot like chess, but it's not the chess that you're expecting, where you don't know the moves until you shuffle out the cards. So that actually adds the replayability. To me, it's like the replayable chess that chess never had. But obviously, chess players are going to flame me because chess has been around since the start of time, I think. So yeah, but the first of my 3 pick, an Asian game, Onitama.
I actually have a copy of Onitama in my office, and I really enjoy playing it because it's very small, it doesn't take up a lot of space. Right, there has this little tiny little map that you can use. And secondly, like you were saying, the replayability is very strong, right? I kind of think there's a lot of mastery in the understanding of the game as well. So because it's a 2-player game, me and my partner, when we are playing it, right, we get better and better each and every single time we play. And that's the chess-like element which I really, really enjoy. Sure that you get different stances every single time, but once you understand like how things can flow and work, you actually have a lot more, like once you see a tile that's come out, you'll be like, okay, I know that what are the possibilities of something else coming out next is something which you can literally think ahead for.
Yeah, I mean, as a game, the first time I took it out, my wife asked me, why do you buy a mouse pad? Because literally, it's a mouse. It's like the same material as a mouse pad, and the size is about a mouse pad. The only thing I really didn't like about this game, right, is the fact that even though the box is small, it's an odd shaped box. So it doesn't really fit into anywhere. You can't really store it together with any of your other boxes. I mean, given the components that the game came in, they could have easily put it into a mid-sized box. Anyway, I had an Instagram post talking about sizes of boxes, where it annoys the shit out of me, where you have so many various box sizes. where people actually, if they actually keep to maybe 5 sizing, just like how apparels work, small, medium, large, extra large, and a big box, it's so much easier to store. But of course, retailers have to find all kinds of ways to attract your attention. So box sizes is definitely its downside. But other than if you can get past the box size, it's a solid game. It's a solid game. Okay, so let me talk about my second game. And my second game is about poker chips, where the poker chips, on each chip is actually printed gems. So my second game is Splendor. Yeah, so I think Splendor as a game possibly needs no introduction. When you have games that you start to see counterfeit copies, you know the game is popular. Because even the people that are trying to copy the game knows that, oh, hey, let's copy a game that is already popular. So in Splendor, what you're trying to do is you're trying to actually acquire these gem chips, so that when you have this, you can actually use it to buy certain gems in the middle of the playing field, eventually trying to attract a noble to you. The game ends when someone has 15 points. So it's quite a fun and simple game. It's easy to teach. There are a few ways that you can collect gems. You can even reserve a card just to kind of screw with other people, because you know that's something that they are trying to synergize with what they're doing, and you just reserve it away. And they have been collecting the chips for it, but now they can't purchase the tile. So to me, as a game, I quite like the whole concept of it being like a deck builder, even though it being like an engine builder, even though the engine building element is just simply falling down to, when you purchase the gem, it just offsets one cost of buying a gem, buying the next gem. So if you bought, for example, the ruby, the next item that you need to buy, it will cost you one less ruby in terms of the chips you pay. So to me, for a engine builder, it's kind of your elementary level to engine builder. If you are trying to find out if engine builders are your game, try Splendor. You won't be disappointed. Even if you don't take it as an engine builder, it's a fun game as it is. So that's my second pick for 2014, Splendor. And now for my heaviest pick of the 2014 series. It is a game that I like a lot for its Mancala concept, and it's a game from one of my favorite designer, Bruno Catala, and the game is 5 Tribes. So in 5 Tribes, essentially, there are 5 tribes of characters, where what you are trying to do is, you can actually pick a tile, and what you have to do is you have to move along, effectively taking the last meeple that you drop off effect. The first time when I bought the game and I opened, I'm like, wow, there's so many meeples inside. Yeah, it's like a whole bag of meeples. And I mean, even though I had games like Carcassonne, you don't have that many meeples in a game box like 5 Tribes, because that's essentially the whole gameplay. The whole game is actually revolving around these movable game board tiles, just like how it is from Istanbul, where you actually set up the gameplay in a certain way. If I'm not mistaken, it's 5 by 5? I can't remember, but you actually set it up in a board, and then you actually put in the meeples randomly, and then that's where you actually take random effects. So for a game, the replayability is insane, because you definitely will never get a same kind of scenario happening in 2 games, because you're just calculating what happens, where goes what. And I think for a game, it has a very interesting, it's one of the first few games that I actually enjoyed the choosing of the starting player, because you have to bid for it. Yeah, there's a bidding mechanism in terms of you selecting where you want to go. Because if you actually manage, and if you play in a 2-player game, you can actually go back-to-back turns, and that is actually very powerful because you set yourself up. Yeah, so as a game, it's complex as it is. There are many effects you can buy. There's a set collection within it because you're buying things from the market. You have different genies that can come in that give you effects. There's just so many things that you can see in the world of 5 Tribes. So yeah, if you are looking for a game that you want people to look at the tabletop and go, wow, it's so colorful, there's so many things happening, 5 Tribes is your game.
Oh, that's excellent, man. Like really, everyone had different picks, so good diverse pool of things.
From heavy to medium to light to very light, you have something for everyone. I think we have something for everyone, I guess.
Actually, I suddenly thought of one game that I thought that Seth would pick. Yeah, it's called Zokin.
I was going to pick Zokin. Okay, it was between Zokin and Splendor, but I actually eventually went for Splendor because I played Splendor more, and in terms of it being a game, I previously mentioned that I felt Zokin was broken unless you add the expansion. Because there is a dominant strategy that you can play with.
I see.
Yeah, so Splendor, there's no real dominant strategy. You can obviously kingmake other people by storing one chip and not giving that up, but ultimately, as a player, you're not winning as well. You're not going anywhere with it. So it was a toss-up between the two. And yeah, I was very close to picking Zokin because it's such a good game, and the mechanics is the kind of game that, just like Five Tribes, people will look at the table, wow, what is that? Are you playing a tabletop game? There is a gear in the middle of the whole game board. So yeah.
But the thing about Zokin is very cool, at the very least. I mean, it's the Mayan calendar component and the way it kind of the theme reflects the game itself. Also, I think very well designed overall.
Yeah. So it would definitely be my 6th or my 7th pick if I extended this to a top 10 listing.
I see.
Yeah, but it was close. Were there any games that you were struggling and in the end you had to drop it off for any of you?
Okay. So game I only played once, so therefore I didn't pick this. There's one game I really want to put. It's called Viticulture. Yeah, but for Viticulture, I think that it is a game not for everyone. Yeah, so it is within my top 10 definitely.
I just bought of it blindly.
Yeah.
I bought a second-hand copy of Viticulture without ever playing Viticulture. But it's an engine builder in it, essentially. It's a worker placement engine builder, right?
Yes.
So it sounds like it's up my alley. So I've been buying games blindly without ever knowing how it's being played. So that I can start with the game.
Okay, yeah. And as I said, Sub-OBA will be my top 10 if there is. What else I considered? Not there. Troyes. Yeah, Troyes. And and the rest I actually kind of forgot. Yeah, so probably these 3 for now, because I can't remember what else I considered as of now. Yeah.
Alright.
I had 2 games that I really wanted to put on the list, but then for 2 different reasons. So the first one was actually Takenoko. Also very cute, it's a good family game to play. But then because I had Tokaido, I like Tokaido a lot more as it is already. So I didn't want to put Takenoko on this as well. Very different game styles, I would say. But the cutesy, great art, very good feels, and very easy to teach your family. Sort of like sit down night. So try to X one of those. And there was one that I feel like is generally a bit heavier, but I didn't want to put it on the list because I had all these casual games already. But Seasons, I thought Seasons was a very fun game that I enjoyed. I mean, both from a mechanical standpoint because it is slightly more strategic in it, but it's the competitiveness of it also. There's some RNG. I mean, after all, there's some it's a dice. Part of it is like dice games as well. So. And that for me just didn't make the cut.
Oh yeah, I suddenly remember 2 more games that I thought of adding in. One is called Lords of Waterdeep.
Oh, Lords of Waterdeep, yeah.
But the reason why I didn't recommend it is because, to be honest, I dislike the expansion. Yeah, so I'd rather play that game I'd rather play just the base game. So the reason why I don't like the expansion is because of Blue Skulls, which I can't remember what it's called. Yeah. The other game is called Terra Mystica. It's a heavy game, yes. And the reason why it's not inside, because it's an unforgiving game whereby it is a game where you cannot make mistakes. Yeah, because once you make mistakes, you're probably losing for sure. Yeah, and and consider that each game will make mistakes, so probably you have to wait for that period of time in order for game to end if you know you're losing. So yeah. Yeah, so other than that, I do have some others I'm still thinking. Maybe I do consider Orleans as well. Yeah. There's something called Orleans. Yeah, so many. Yeah, so for this list actually it's quite a tough list to come up with. Yeah, and it's a bit more suitable for recommendation to most Singaporeans and all that.
I mean, given that we already cut it from 1 decade to 5 years, to half a decade, it definitely would have played a part in making it a bit easier than we have throw out a whole decade and you have to drop off like 20 games because you have a decade of games to choose from. Yeah. For me, the one that I really like, but I didn't include into the list because for me, player elimination is always a problem when you have a game. Yeah, and a game like King of Tokyo, even though I really like the game, people can get eliminated too early in the game, and then for the rest of the night, they're just looking at what's happened. So, in a way, it makes the whole game night not so fun for some when you get eliminated. Because I ever got eliminated in like after my first time I rolled the dice, everybody was just ganging on me. Because I happened to enter Tokyo, and then after that, when I exited Tokyo, I died. Someone killed me because it just happened that they had a freak roll. So this is the kind of game that it's fun. The expansions help a bit because they give you a bit more variable power and it actually keeps you alive for a bit longer. But ultimately, you still have player elimination and for a game that the RNG in player elimination can actually go so high, and if you are targeted as a player to be eliminated, you'll be spending the next 40 minutes looking for a solo game just to spend time while everybody is still enjoying the game of King of Tokyo. Yeah, so that was one of them that I dropped off, and of course I dropped Zorkin. And Matthew, you had any that you struggled to exclude?
Yeah, actually, okay, I had to actually choose between that game and what was the other one? Spyfall. Right, and the name of the game is actually called Masters of Commerce. I think they rebranded the name to Panic on Wall Street. And generally, the idea of the game is that you're either a buyer or seller of, if I'm correct, property. Right. So the buyers, so let's say for example, it plays, if I'm correct, anywhere between 6 to 12 players. So you divide into 2 teams. In case there's odd one out, I think it's given more to buyers. So what buyers are supposed to do, they are supposed to buy properties from the sellers, right? But the thing is, when sellers actually sell property, they will actually indicate, so like each of the properties that they actually have a card, and you can actually draw like write stuff on it with whiteboard markers. So you can decide that, okay, maybe I'm going to put this up for $10. Okay, you interested in buying? Then the buyers, what they have is a bunch of chips in which they can use to like joke and make deals, and all this is actually happening live. So in the first part of it is basically going to be like a marketplace. You have like I think 2 minutes and everybody's like dealing everybody. Yeah. Right. After, and the difficult properties, so basically some has low risk, low reward, some has high risk, high rewards, right? And so after all the buying and the selling, we'll actually roll dice to determine like the stock market for the different types of properties. And basically, the buyers will be rewarded based on the properties that they have bid. But whatever earnings that they have to pay for the rents to the sellers, right? So that's how sellers earn money. And while sellers earn money, the final part of the round would be to actually auction off new properties for sellers to buy. So basically, you have this whole ecosystem of like, just every time having the market, everybody's just all making noise with each other. Buyers buying property, buyers paying rent, sellers earning money from rent, but sellers need to buy more properties for auction. And generally, in each team, whether you're the buyers or the sellers, whoever has the most amount of money wins. Yeah. The only reason why I didn't choose it is not really in the spirit of light and simple, but if not for that, I would have probably kicked out Spyfall very easily and insert Masters of Commerce, or now known as Panic on Wall Street, which is in 2011.
If you like, I can edit the video to include it as
Don't need.
Gave such a detailed explanation of how the game is like, so we could easily replace the entry or just give you 6 entries and see if people spot that you are seeing 6 times in in the top 5.
Also can, up to you. You know, you're free to you're free to edit it anyway. Yeah. But I mean, based on how you guys are reacting, definitely it may not be a title that's familiar to you guys, but you're like, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot going on for that game. There's a lot going on for that game.
Actually, do y'all have y'all actually heard of the game before?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, so only Geoffrey heard of it. Yeah. Yeah, I thought it would be good to give a very detailed explanation so you can appreciate, like, oh, so this is how the game works. Oh, wow,
Yeah.
I can appreciate the tension that actually happens in that 2 minutes, especially.
Yeah, the 2-minute thing is, I mean, it tries to mimic actually being on Wall Street, so like that's intense, man. That's super intense.
Yeah.
Anytime when there's a game where there's a timer involved, it always feels very. I don't know, man. It adds the tension.
Time pressure.
It's intentional that's why they added in. And I mean, when you add a timer to anything, it just creates a tension for no particular reason. But I mean, if the tension is good tension for the whole gameplay to work, definitely the tension has to be there. So what are some games that come out in the first half of 2010s that you actually enjoy? Please do share with us in the comments below. Our next entry will be on the top 5 games of the second half of 2010, so basically from 2015 to 2019. So do please look forward to it. If you enjoy videos like this top 5 series, do comment below to share with us what are some other top 5 videos or ideas that you'd like to see. We will try to make that happen. And of course, if you like our videos, do subscribe below. The bottom right hand corner is where you can find a subscribe button. Click onto it. Scroll down a bit more, click onto the notification bell so you get our video as soon as they're out. Do give the video a like, share with your friends who may be looking for games. And we have more videos on the site. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.